guys, welcome back to my channel. Simone here. So today I'm going to be filming my September wrap-up, and although I kind of feel a bit disappointed by this, I know a lot of you will think 11 books is amazing, and it is amazing. It's just recently, I know the last 2 months I think I read 14 and 15 books, so I think I've been spoiled a little bit in thinking that that's kind of where I was at. So it is amazing. I'm happy really with what I've read. I think it's just because it wasn't the same as last month, but then it's to be expected. We've had a different kind of month in trying to kind of get back into our routine and everything with you know, new things happening, which has been really fun and exciting. And obviously there is one book that won't be in this list because I didn't finish it until October, but it took me about a month to read. So yeah, we'll look forward to that one for next month's wrap up, but my god, I was reading it for ages, and it's meant that all my other books I've been trying to read at the same time, so it's just been a bit of a long book, that one. But anyway, let's get started with the 11 books that I did read this month, and I'm starting with one very exciting one, which was exciting but then let me down, unfortunately. This was the first NetGalley book I actually ever was sent, and I was sent this by the publisher. So the book was #FashionVictim by Amina Akhtar, and I was sent this by Crooked Lane Books, and I would still like to give a massive thank you to them for sending me an ARC copy, even though I didn't really like this book at all. In fact, I gave it a 2-star. This book had a really interesting premise, and I was really looking forward to reading it. But basically it was a story set in a fashion house, and the synopsis of it was kind of about, like, it reminded me a lot of The Devil Wears Prada, which is one of my favourite films. I love that film a lot. And it was basically a fashion house where like murders and things started happening, and murder mysteries and fashion houses are very interesting. Like, both those things just sounded like something I would love to read. Unfortunately, what I didn't realise and what I didn't sort of take into account was the fact that it actually said this is a mixture of The Devil Wears Prada and American Psycho, which I have watched the movie of, and I really didn't enjoy it, and I thought it was pointless. And I now think the book is pointless because I do see the parallels. Basically, the main character in this is a psychopath who just murders everyone around her. And yeah, and the book is from her perspective. Really didn't like this book. The main character, like I said, it was from her perspective and she was the psychopath, and I didn't enjoy the book You by Carolyn Kepnes for the same reason. I can't connect to a character who is just murdering people out of nowhere for no reason. I don't like it. So yeah, it's not for me, this book, unfortunately. There was a lot of problematic things in this and I just couldn't get behind it, so I wouldn't recommend this one, unfortunately. But again, I do thank Crooked Lane Books for sending this ARC to me, because it's always nice to get, like, to feel like I've been sent something that's very special. So thank you very much, but I won't be reading this one again. So the second book I read this month, there is a bit of a spoiler here for if you haven't already watched my September favourites. If you have, then you'll know what's coming up. If not, again, you'll see this book in there. But my favourite book of the month was This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay, Secret Diaries of a Junior Doctor, and it basically is what it says. Adam Kay was a junior doctor. He's no longer a junior doctor, but he was at the time of this, and he wrote these diaries basically throughout his time working in a very pressurised environment with the NHS, of course. And I think the NHS is a very important thing. I do think also that somebody who uses the service doesn't necessarily see everything behind the scenes. I work for a pharmacy, so I do see some of this, but not any, like, to no extent do I see all of this at all. And it really explained to me, like, on the back it literally says 97-hour weeks, life and death decisions. You know, like, that just tells you itself how important their jobs are and how much we also rely on people who work as doctors. Like, we do, you know, if anything goes wrong, they are the people that we turn to. And it was a hilarious book in some ways. There were some things he talked about that were very, very funny, but it was also heartbreaking, and the ending was very, very heartbreaking. So yeah, obviously this has lots of gore in and lots of kind of, there is some mental health talk in here as well, so if that's something that you're not comfortable with, maybe give this one a miss, but otherwise I think that you will definitely love this, and I would 100% recommend this to everybody pretty much. Yeah, I think it's great. And obviously I gave that one a 5-star. And the next one I read, I was unsure when I went into this, because this is a book that's got a lot of hype, and a lot of different people, like people that I watch. I have quite a range of people, so people that read lots of different things. I have people that read YA, I have people that read lots of literary things, and a big mixture. And everybody that I've watched really loves this book, and I was thinking, okay, it must be good then. And you know what, I gave this a 5-star. It was very close to being my favourite book of the month, but that last one just pipped it a tiny bit. But this one was also fantastic, and it's this one, Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. And I believe it won the Costa Book Awards of 2017, and rightly so, because this book, oh my goodness, this book was absolutely amazing. I read this so quickly because I just really I was hooked. Eleanor Oliphant was one of my favourite protagonists of a book that I've ever read, and I really just sympathised with her, and also I could really see myself in her in parts. So this is about a woman, obviously called Eleanor Oliphant, who leads a very simple life on the surface, but she doesn't really, she's very lonely. She she works Monday to Friday, but when she leaves work on a Friday, the last person she speaks to is the bus driver that takes her home, and then she doesn't speak to anybody else all weekend until Monday morning when she gets the bus back to work again. And she has a lot of things in her past that are kind of part of her, but she's very honest with herself, and she's amazing. But anyway, something happens in this where she's forced into kind of communicating with a co-worker, and it goes from there, and it's about her trying to build relationships. And I love this. I genuinely absolutely love it. I think there were moments in this when I was thinking, like, it's so raw and so honest. And it's such a genuine depiction of kind of living alone and the things that happen. And I just thought it was amazing. It was also very touching in parts. There were lots of things that happened in it, and lots of kind of friendship things that I just loved. And yeah, I 100%, like I said, this is definitely a book that probably would appeal to more people than, like, this is a book that reaches across all genres. Like, if you are a specific genre fan, you'll probably still like this, because there are so many different parts of it. I don't know what genre I would put this in, and I don't really think it's important. But yeah, to me this is all about like loneliness and friendship, and I loved this. I thought it was absolutely incredible, and I gave this a 5-star. So the next book I read was my random pick of September, and I will link my September TBR down below, so you can go and watch my reaction to it if you like. I won't spoil it yet, but if you haven't already watched that, then you'll know that I was picked the book Kim by Rudyard Kipling, which was Rudyard Kipling is the author of the Jungle Book. So when I found out this book was one I was going to read, I was very excited. It was a book set in India, and it was something completely different to anything I'd ever read. It was very wordy, and to be honest with you, I gave this a 1-star. It went completely over my head. I didn't understand any of it, and I think that is probably something that I think it's important to read outside of your comfort zone. However, I think I really need to realise that these types of books are just not books that I will like. I read Buddenbrooks last year and really didn't like that one. I read Cranford, didn't like that one. There are a few books that I've tried, and I think that for me, I'm just not that kind of a reader. So for me, I think I just need to stop trying to read books that I'm not that interested in, and I'm probably not gonna like. I think I was interested more in the fact that this was a diverse read than for what it was actually about, and I think that's not a good way to read diversely, if that makes sense. So yeah, I didn't like this book at all. I gave it a 1-star, but I think it's helped me realise what my reading how my reading style should go. Speaking of really wordy books that I'm probably not a big fan of, unfortunately, this is also one of those. This one is The Two Towers by J.R.R. Tolkien, which is the second book in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and I really wasn't the biggest fan of this. I gave this one a 2-star. Basically, I love The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I didn't mind the first book, but I read it with my sister, and we kind of read it aloud to each other, so it was a completely different reading experience, and obviously I didn't read it all as my main book to read. It was kind of one we would read every now and then, so I think that helped. Reading this through in one go, I found myself skimming pages, hoping that I'd get to the story. There's just so much waffle in it about trees, and random things that it just wasn't interesting to me. I was getting bored. I found myself, I mean, I read it in a week, but I was reading it like as quickly as possible to try and get through it. Now that saying, I probably would still read the third one just because then I can be like, I've read The Lord of the Rings, but not necessarily for my enjoyment, which means, again, I don't know if that's the best way of going about reading. But yeah, I'm not a fan. To be honest, the second book has always been my least favourite film. Like the second part of the story has always been my least favourite film, so maybe I'll enjoy the third one more, but I can't really see it happening, to be honest with you. I just wasn't a big fan of this one. Next up, I read quite a surprise book, and this one was The Rose Girls by Victoria Connolly. And this was one I think I got, I'm not sure if I got it free or like very cheap on my Kindle. And I was going through my Kindle and I thought, oh, I'll give this one a read. After reading The Lord of the Rings and Kim, I just wanted something that was quite easy to read. And I read this one and I loved it. I gave it a 4-star because it was really just a really well written and like comfortable read. Basically it follows a girl, I can't remember her name, so don't even try and ask me because I have no idea. I can't remember. But it follows our main character who has a very difficult relationship with her mother, and then her mother dies right like before the start of the book, and she moves back to the house that her mum lived in because her 2 sisters are living there, and they run a rose business. So they make their own, they breed their own roses and sell them, and they basically the house that they're staying in is this massive like manor type house, and it's all falling apart, and they are all dealing with the death of their mother in different ways. Like she has had a very negative experience with her mum, but like her sister was very close to her mum, and so there's a bit of tension there between like the fact that she wasn't there for them when her mum died and stuff, and she struggles, but she goes back to try to raise some money to to rebuild the house basically, and decide what to do with the business and things like that. And it was just that like family dynamics and the different things that happen, and I found it really interesting how different siblings could have a different relationship with their parents, because like for example myself and my sister, I think we'd have very different relationships with our parents. Neither of them are negative, but I think that we do have very differing relationships. And I find that really fascinating, because obviously you would imagine they grew up in the same house at the same time, and you would think they would have very similar, but it can be very different. And I think that's what I love most about this. All the characters in it I loved. The main character, I thought she was absolutely amazing, and I loved her so much. And all of her, like just everyone in this it was warm and it was cozy, and I just felt really comfortable reading it, and I read it very quickly again, and I really loved this. I definitely would read more Victoria Connolly in the future, because this one was really like an amazing read, so I'm glad I read it. Then up next I have a book that I was quite interested to read, but I didn't really know too much about it, and that was The Time Traveller's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger, which was a book that I have always had on my shelf pretty much. I've had it for ages, but I never had read it, and then obviously I read it this month and thought it was great. I gave it a 4-star. I will say one thing: if you don't like books that jump around timeline wise, this is definitely not a book for you. And to be honest with you, a lot of the timeline jumps went over my head. I kind of read it as almost like in my head like a chronological story, and I would sort of pick up bits that were in different places, but basically it follows the love story of Henry and Claire, who are married. However, Henry will, in the time that they're in at this point, I think they're about 30 to 40, I can't remember exactly how old they are, but Henry keeps jumping in time. Like he will just disappear, suddenly all of his clothes will be on the floor and he'll be gone. However, throughout Claire's childhood, she remembers this man that would come in called Henry. She knew him, they were friends, who would just randomly appear naked at times in her life throughout bits and pieces, and she would help him, she'd give him clothes, and they formed that kind of bond. And obviously now she knows that when she's 30 or 40, he's going back to the times when she was like a child, and that time jump, there's lots of different times when it's happening. Again, I thought this was an amazing book. I really enjoyed the premise of it. The relationship between them was great. This did take me some time to read, and the reason for that is it's not very plot heavy. Although there's that jump and that, a lot of it is about the relationship between the two of them and how that kind of works over time and their feelings for each other. There's not a lot of like like plot twists or anything like that in it. And so it is dense, it's very dense, but I think it's, how many pages is it? It's over 500 pages, so it is very dense. It's definitely worth slogging through. My mum and dad gave me the DVD of this, so I'm looking forward to being able to watch the adaptation of it as well. But I feel like if I watched the film first, it probably would have gone over my head just because it's so jumpy. But I think now I've read the book, that hopefully that will help. But anyway, I really liked this. Like I said, it is dense, so just keep an eye out on that and if you read it. But I definitely would recommend it because it was really good. Next up was an audiobook that I listened to, and this was Only Time Will Tell by Jeffrey Archer, which is the first book in the Clifton Chronicles, and I really enjoyed this book. I gave this one a 3-star, and I'll get into the reason why it didn't get higher from me in a minute. But firstly, this follows a young boy named Harry Clifton who has grown up without his father in his life, and he's always been told that his dad died in the war, and he comes from a very kind of relatively poor background, sort of lower working class, and he goes to school, and it's about him being put forward for a choral scholarship at a kind of private school. And it's about that. Now, the reason why I didn't give this a higher rating was because the synopsis really annoyed me. And this might be a petty thing, but the synopsis gives away something that doesn't happen until the last like 20% of the book. And I was like, I feel like I was waiting throughout the whole thing. I won't tell you exactly what it is, because I think if you read this, don't read the synopsis before you go into it. But what I will say is, the synopsis says something that happens to him when he's an adult, and for the first 80% of the book he's probably up to like 18 years old, so like most of it is him as a child at school. And so I was reading it and I was waiting for him to become an adult, but it never happened until, like I said, like 20% of the way from the end of the book, and then I was a bit like, oh, is that all I'm getting? It doesn't make sense to me. There was a weird trope in this that I don't enjoy, but I did think the book was really good. It was really well paced. The only other thing was the timeline thing in this is very strange. Basically, throughout the book it's told from different perspectives. So the first, I think, like the first few chapters are from like Harry's perspective, and then it will overlap, so then you'll get the next person's perspective, but it will be from like halfway through Harry's perspective, and it would like retell what happened but from somebody else's point of view, and then talk about something else. And I didn't love that, to be honest with you. But yeah, I gave it 3 stars. I thought the story was interesting. I just wish it didn't go backwards so many times, and I wish they didn't spoil it in the synopsis. Next up, I read a book that's by one of my favourite authors, and most of you will probably know that this is one of my favourite authors, and that is Leigh Bardugo, who wrote the Six of Crows duology, as you all know. And my favourite book of last year was Six of Crows, and this one I read was Wonder Woman Warbringer by Leigh Bardugo, and this is the first in the DC Icons series. I think there's 4 of them, and there are 4 different YA authors coming out with 4 different origin stories. So this one obviously is Wonder Woman. I think, in fact it says on the back, Sarah J Maas is writing Catwoman, Marie Lu is writing Batman, and then Matt de la Peña is writing Superman. I believe Catwoman's out, and I think Batman is out, so maybe Superman is the last one to come out. But I would read some more of them. I really did like this one. I gave this one a 4-star, and I thought it was really well written. Again, it's Leigh Bardugo. She kind of can't do anything wrong in my eyes. But this follows Wonder Woman before she becomes Wonder Woman. So she is merely a woman called Diana, who is a princess of the Amazons, but she has been made by her mother, as opposed to being like, what's the word? She hasn't like earned her Amazon thing, I think is kind of how it goes. But she wants to she tries to save a young woman named Aaliyah. Unfortunately for her, Aaliyah turns out to be a Warbringer, not that she knows this, which means that she will bring war to the world. And Diana is sort of hell-bent on trying to find a way for everybody to survive and not to end in a bad way, basically. I really loved this. I thought there was some amazing diversity in this. I really enjoyed Diana as a character. I thought she was that stereotypical badass character, but I genuinely think she was, rather than the kind of like weak ones that a lot of books get. again, I think Leigh Bardugo's writing is amazing. I loved this book. For some reason it didn't quite reach 5 to me, but I don't really have like a tangible reason for that. It just wasn't quite there, but I absolutely loved it, and yeah, I would definitely recommend. I feel like even though I know nothing about Wonder Woman, I didn't need to for this story. In fact, I'm pretty sure the words Wonder Woman never actually come up in the book, so yeah, if you are put off this because you think you're not really into superheroes, you don't need to be at all. Then the next one I read was the next book in the Kay Scarpetta series by Patricia Cornwell, and this one was book 3, and it's All That Remains. And this was amazing again. Again, I give this a 4-star. I think all of this series has had a 4-star from me so far. I can't remember, but I feel like this is one of my favourites, and I know I have definitely read it before, but I didn't remember anything about it or what happened. So this follows obviously Kay Scarpetta trying to figure out what's going on, because there has been, I think, 4 couples, like young couples, that have been found dead in woodland areas months after they went missing. And as the story starts, there is a 4th couple then that goes missing. Unfortunately, the girl in the couple, her mother is she's one of the most powerful women in America. I think she's got something to do with, like, she's a politician of some kind, but I can't quite remember exactly what it is. Anyway, so obviously Kay Scarpetta is under a lot of pressure to solve this one, but she can't seem to find out the cause of death for any of these people, because their bodies have their tissue is disintegrated so much that she can't find out. So obviously then it is to find out what's going on here. I really loved this one. I think I love the fact that Kay Scarpetta and Marino's relationship, just their partnership, really I just love. I can't remember what happens in future books, whether they sort of have any further relationship, but I just love their working relationship. I think they really bounce off each other well, and they really stand up for each other as well, which I really enjoy. The only thing I don't like about this book, I don't really like Mark, who is a love interest for Kay Scarpetta, so we'll see how that goes. I don't like him personally. That's just a personal preference though. I find him a bit annoying. So yeah, that's just the reason I gave it 4, not a 5-star. But I just really, really enjoyed this book, and I love the series, so I can't wait to continue on and read some more. And then the final book I read this month was another free one off of my Kindle, and this one is the first in the Lucy Kendall series, and this one is All Good Deeds by Stacey Green. Now this was a book I didn't really know much about going into it. I knew it was a thriller, and that was about as far as I got, but I really loved this. This follows our main character, Lucy, obviously Lucy Kendall, who when she was younger, her sister committed suicide because she was abused by her stepfather, and since she found her body, she has been trying to, well, she became a social worker, and she tried to help people who were who had young people who had sort of looked like they might be going on towards the whole psychopath route. She was trying to help them out. Unfortunately, one of the people that she helped as their psychiatrist actually killed and raped a young girl, and so since then she's decided to try a different type of justice, and basically she's like a vigilante. She goes around killing paedophiles is essentially the short of this book. And yeah, it's about a girl goes missing, and she then has to try and figure out who did it, and she's trying to help the local police officer. She's a private investigator as well, and I just loved this book. I think Lucy Kendall is one of those characters I could totally sympathise with her. I could understand the thing in her that made her so angry, because obviously her sister killed herself because of somebody like this, and I could understand that completely, and I felt really strongly for this book. I could understand why she was killing these people, and I didn't really feel sorry for them, to be totally honest with you. I really loved this. I thought that it's the first Stacey Green book I've ever read, and I'm really glad I did, because I thought it was great. So hopefully, I think there's more books in this series, so I'm hoping to continue on and read some more. But yeah, definitely recommend if you haven't checked out her work already. So there you have it, guys. That's the 11 books I read in the month of September. I know there were a few of I didn't read a lot of my September TBR, but hopefully I'll get to them at some point. So yeah, do keep watching. I know I've just posted my October TBR, so go and check that one out if you haven't already, to see what I'm planning on reading this month. And Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I upload every Monday and Friday at 5 PM, so do feel free to come back and check out my channel at those times, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys!